Today, we're looking into one of the wildest nights in music history, the night they tried to kill disco. Yep, you heard that right. We're talking about Disco Demolition Night, an event that went down in history as the day disco officially died. So, let's jump right into it. Before we get to the crazy part, let's set the stage. The 1970s was the golden era of disco. You couldn't walk down the street without hearing songs like Stayin' Alive by the Bee Gees or Le Freak by Chic blasting from every radio. Disco was all about having fun, dancing, flashy clothes, and groovy beats that made you want to move. Clubs like Studio 54 in New York were the place to be, with colorful lights, glitter balls, and non-stop parties. Disco wasn't just a type of music, it was a whole lifestyle. But not everyone loved disco. By the late 70s, some people were getting tired of it. Rock fans, in particular, felt like disco was taking over, pushing their favorite music out of the spotlight. The tension between disco and rock fans was growing, and it all boiled over on July 12, 1979, at a baseball stadium in Chicago. Enter Steve Dahl, a rock DJ who was not a fan of disco. Steve was so fed up with disco music that he came up with a crazy idea. He convinced the Chicago White Sox, a baseball team, to let him blow up disco records in the middle of their doubleheader game against the Detroit Tigers. They called it Disco Demolition Night. And if you brought a disco record to be destroyed, you could get into the game for just 98 cents. What happened next was pure chaos. Over 50,000 people showed up to the stadium, way more than anyone expected. The crowd was a mix of rock fans and anti-disco people, all eager to see disco music go up in flames, literally. In between the two baseball games, they loaded a big box full of disco records onto the field. Steve Dahl, dressed in army gear, gave a big speech, and then boom, he blew up the records. But that wasn't the end. The explosion was so intense that it tore up the field, and the crowd went wild. People stormed the field, lighting fires and causing so much destruction that the White Sox had to forfeit the second game. Yep, they actually lost the game because the field was trashed. Now, here's where things get a little darker. Disco Demolition Night wasn't just about music. It also reflected some of the underlying social tensions of the time. Disco music was closely linked to the LGBTQ+ community and African American artists. Some critics say that the backlash against disco wasn't just about the music. It was also an expression of homophobia and racism. The event, with its overwhelming crowd of mostly white, straight rock fans, seemed to target more than just records. It symbolized a rejection of the diverse communities that embraced disco, making this night not just wild, but also deeply controversial. So, did disco really die that night? Well, sort of. While disco music didn't disappear completely, Disco Demolition Night symbolized the end of its domination. After that night, disco started fading from the mainstream, making room for new genres like new wave, punk, and hip-hop. Disco Demolition Night was one of those moments that showed just how powerful music can be, not just in bringing people together, but also in creating division. It's a reminder that music is more than just sound. It's a reflection of what's happening in society. Let me know in the comments what you think about disco. Love it or hate it. And as always, keep the music playing.